Welcome to For Every Response, the podcast from Emergency Services Times, sponsored by MSA Safety. In this series, we bring you sessions from the Emergency Services Show and the Emergency Tech Show 2025. The complexity of working with fingerprint lifts at crime scenes is challenging, but a vital part of investigations. This is why the Digital Fingerprint Capability is a revolution for forensics. And in this episode, experts share how this has developed and how it integrates with key policing technology and infrastructure.
What we wanted to do here today was just to come and talk to you about levelling the forensic playing field and how, as Police Digital Service, we've attempted that. So hopefully you can gain some useful insights from the presentation from myself and the team. So I'm actually from Police Digital Service. Police Digital Service, obviously here delivering technical solutions for policing, by policing as an organisation. That covers the full range of national capabilities as part of its rollout. That goes back to the discovery, the build, the actual design of that, the run in terms of its whole piece, and that sort of delivery arm as well. So a really important piece, and I'm really proud to be here talking from Police Digital Service as well. To introduce you to the team, myself first, I'm Richard Meffen. I'm head of the forensic portfolio within PDS, and I'll talk about that in a second. We've got Stephen Gait, who's the product owner of the Digital Fingerprint Capability and the Exchange cloud-based platform. And then we've also got, luckily, we've got James here as well, who's representing James Earnshaw, who is representing Yorkshire and Humber as a subject matter expert to give a useful insight in terms of customer view of our delivery. Just to sort of baseline before I go into my presentation, there's some big strategic challenges, and I don't think it's just unique to forensics, but when you come to deliver any form of national capability, and I've been involved in this now for just under 3 years, there is a very fragmented landscape, and that's not a criticism, it's just a reality of where I think a lot of public sector organisations are in terms of build and policing. That when we come to deliver national capabilities, when we come to dock into police forces, you're not docking into one entity. We're docking into basically 43 with all the variances in the sort of technological landscapes. What is really clear as well is that there is a need for national capabilities. There's a real big driver for that. And I think as we go on in time, the need to go towards national capabilities will grow more and more. And when I say that, I'm confident in saying that because there'll potentially be, we have to deliver greater efficiencies. Can we keep producing and procuring 43 ways of doing things? And that's the big sort of driver. But again, the key bit around national capabilities or the strategic challenges, when you come to build something ready to dock in, you've got to capture 43 different user or business requirements, or at least align all those forces into one way of working. At the same time, strategically, and we've learned this on our journey, when you come and trying to land a capability in force, forces are running at 110 miles an hour, just by the operational nature. They're busy places, demand exceeding sort of in currently the supply of activity. And that is particularly in forensics, where we're docking into areas where they're dealing with other challenges at the same time, accreditation challenges, workforce challenges, configuration, demand coming through, operational. So again, we had some really big hitters in terms of our strategic challenge, even before we started this piece of work. To help counter that, PDS, Police Digital Service, has set up its delivery around portfolios. One of those portfolios is forensics, of which I lead. And this is aimed at having a real clear focus around our delivery, engaging with a very set number of customers in terms of with the advantage of that link, developing business and the success that we need to do in our delivery. We're going to go a bit more into detail in terms of our delivery around the fingerprint capability and exchange as part of our demonstration today. But equally, we're doing other work at the moment around a digital forensics validation service, underpinned by a lot of the cloud technology that PDS has got at its disposal. But at the same time, we're also looking at some discovery work at the moment, leveraging the unique skills within PDS to look at how we can support national infrastructures, cloud technologies. And some of those unique skills are critical in this space, because you can't just roll out a cloud platform without having that cyber assurance running all the way through it, or the assurance and the AI. There's some really big bits of architecture and infrastructure you need to make sure are there ready. So the portfolio approach is really working well inside PDS at the moment. We're really at the moment pushing that out towards our customer base as well, to try and give the reassurance that PDS is here to help support our delivery. I'm just going to play you a short video now that shows you the fingerprint capability and the Exchange platform. It does a lot better than what I can do talking. So it's about 3 minutes long, but hopefully from this you'll see what we've built and the sort of way we're just about to go into sort of the rollout of that. So hopefully you enjoy the video.
Fingerprints date back over 100 years and are vital to investigating crime and ensuring positive justice outcomes. They are the quickest and earliest forensic identifier for investigations, used both to detect and prevent crime. They work across all crime types, but especially serious acquisitive and neighborhood crimes. In a fingerprint bureau, it's difficult to do the job well due to high demand, working by hand, lots of paperwork, and chances for errors. In a force, there are many complex moving parts, which can mean duplication, lost files, and confusion. Nationally, these challenges are magnified for policing and forensics teams, resulting in significant costs in time and effort across policing. Collaboration is challenging. We rely on the skills of experts, while police forces use different operating models and infrastructures, making it difficult to deliver a national strategy working to common standards. It's a postcode lottery for the victim and policing. A recent His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary Fire and Rescue Services report highlights the problem. There are around 2 million neighborhood crimes each year against households and individuals. Speeding up the process of identifying offenders can cut crime, and it contributes to the government's Beating Crime plan. Fast forward to the new National Digital Fingerprint Solution. It's online and ready for your force. Built by policing and forensic experts, we can recover fingerprints and crime scene images immediately, transferring them in real time with the victim present to the new National Fingerprint Database in Exchange. Exchange works seamlessly in the cloud and integrates with the Home Office's Biometrics 10-print database, which holds more than 8 million individual records. For the first time, policing can work end-to-end, digitally, processing fingerprints using this fully accredited solution. The highest quality fingerprint images will be processed and identified using a unique set of tools. Driven by automated, paperless workflows designed in line with regulatory standards. People at the Force Fingerprint Bureau can freely collaborate and share fingerprint data digitally, safely, and securely. For local forces, significant and achievable benefits and outcomes include reduced risks around data compliance and lost files, results received in hours, detecting and preventing more crime from happening, faster, quicker, and easier identification of criminals, savings on out-of-date equipment and removal of local mass storage costs, more efficient and effective ways of working with standard, streamlined, and automated business processes. And nationally, benefits include removing the postcode lottery of service quality, offering all forces an equal playing field with the same platform and capability. Enables further integration with Home Office biometrics to truly support a whole public system approach to how technology supports criminal investigations. Standardizes the national operating and accreditation approach supported by a fingerprint network. Opens the way to licensing Exchange cloud technology, enabling the police digital service to provide future capabilities. This is your time to go digital with fingerprint technology. Ready now and waiting for you and your force.
Thank you for listening to that video, and hopefully it gave a greater insight in terms of not what we want to build, but actually what we have built. And that cloud technology piece is the real strong part of that capability, a way it sort of reaches across geographical regions as well. And as we go on today, I want to just talk about the build is one thing, but how we've gone on and actually moved into our delivery of that as well. There were some principles and sort of what outcomes, objectives that we really want to ensure when we built the capability. That standardized national solution was really key to that. Like I said at the start, there were some really big challenges in terms of how we actually got the user community together to build something once in one way. And Stephen's going to talk about that in a bit more detail. But again, the real call out for me is, you're offering cloud technology. It's got that compliance, integration and security built through it. It's got that 24/7 National Management Centre check and run a part of its delivery. And we're lucky as part of PDS to be able to deliver that. And it's scalable and sustainable. Massive points. Policing will grow, demand will grow. There's no doubt about that. The video said about those opportunities, about how you build on that platform. Once you've got a platform there that we've provided the PDS wraparound, then there's loads of open opportunities there you could do so many things for. Obviously, my focus is forensics, but again, there's a real sort of pathfinder way forward here of how do you come with a capability and make it a national capability? And that's what I really want to make sure we get over today. When you actually go from a build and a design is one thing, but when you move that into a national capability, you have to get a lot of strategic ducks lined up. There is no doubt about that. That 6 little areas on the screen that you can see took the team about 12 months to get to that point. We had to go to chief constables to get their sign up to the capability. And that's 43 chief constables in terms of that. You've got PCCs as well as part of that process. And as you go through those conversations, you have to outline really clearly the benefits, the investment, the timescales. Can you do it? I'll really call that one out. Can you deliver the capability? Is there trust in the organisation doing that and the product? When you roll something out, you need some money to pay for it, to pay for the team. We had a very small team doing this piece of work, but we still needed national funding. And again, as part of national transformation, we had the Home Office money to do that, but around some very specific deliverables and milestones. I put into place a DFC strategic group of senior forensic leaders. The core of that was what we called early adopters. So we chose several forces that were the early adopters that would become the advocates of the system. And I'll call out today, I don't think we'd have been successful without actually having those people engaging properly with us and being a really active part of our delivery. And equally, to act as a sort of a critical friend sense check in terms of what we were trying to attempting to do. I'm pleased to say that we locked in that it was a national system. And just to give you a guide there, you're looking at 90% sign up to actually make something a national capability to get all these things in place. I've mentioned the cyber piece, having that in place, but service management was also really important, using the PDS service management sort of wrap and over in arm, because at some point you move from program into delivery and run, and making sure that you've got that in place, and the transition between the two can't be underestimated. And then finally, having program funding is one thing, but you then need to sustain the capability run costs, whether that's the cloud platform, the storage, the software solutions, very much in a funding stream. That links massively back into the confirmation it's a national system and the chief constable sign up to the product and capability. I'm going to pause on that and just to give you a break from my voice, and I'm going to hand you over to Steve now. Steve's going to talk to you about 3 specific areas. How we use the customer base to build the right product that the customer actually wanted. The impact of why fingerprints is really important still in policing. And finally, high-level benefits. Stephen.
Thank you, Rich. To start with, it's just outlining my job as a product owner. My job is to make sure that we have a product that's fit for purpose and can meet the challenges and the business problems that it's designed to meet. My journey started with 25 years working within Operational Fingerprint Bureau, and year on year, when I became a manager within that environment, it was trying to keep pace with the changes and consistently trying to deliver more with less and keep up with the challenges of modern policing. So when I joined the project, I joined with a lot of colleagues from around England and Wales, and we developed the product by doing a truly collaborative approach and a true partnership between the practitioners in the CSI office, in the forensic laboratories, and the Fingerprint Bureau. So the initial requirements that were listed came from the people who were managing that area and working within that area, and also the testing, the design, the weekly deep dives, and the central validation, all was designed to make sure that we designed something that actually served the community that was crying out for this investment. Collectively, we've worked together with policing and the Home Office's funding, and what we think we've developed is something that is proving to move policing and fingerprints forward into a digital age. What we've actually got is a traditional method for detecting crime that is now better and faster. So the scope of what we've designed and the impact that the product has is that it is there to support 24/7 operational policing. So it supports those people who are leading investigations, and it supports them by giving rapid returns on fingerprint evidence that's recovered from crime scenes. We're supporting over 2,000 users within our software, and that in turn is supporting over 140,000 police officers up and down the country. Bringing everyone onto the same product means that we're sitting people on the same platform, which means that we can start to form a strong fingerprint community and also start to access national metrics so that we can look at the problem and look at how we're addressing the issues that exist. We've got hundreds of thousands of speculative searches and fingerprint comparisons. We're able to accommodate them on a yearly basis. Looking at this slide, we can see that we've provided a digital end-to-end process. So this belongs to the fingerprint bureaus in England and Wales. So they have their own digital end-to-end process, which is improving the evidence capture and has created their digital workflows for their fingerprint data. As a manager within a fingerprint bureau, and increasingly I have challenges relating to the forensic regulators code of practice and ISO accreditation. So all of the colleagues that I've worked with have brought that experience into the design of the product, and we've produced something that supports and aligns those developments. We're also working towards standardization nationally, which means we're bringing the community together, but also we're trying to we've identified best practice and tried to mandate things so that people are working the same way across the platform. We have those national fingerprint data sets to inform strategic direction for national policing, and we also have designed the system to comply with all the data and information requirements, the ability to weed and manage the police data appropriately in line with legislation. Undoubtedly, one of the major benefits that we provided is we provided a national system that gives you more hits, better hits, and faster hits. So in other words, quicker results and quicker outcomes to the criminal justice system and the victims of crime.
This episode of the Emergency Services Times podcast is sponsored by MSA Safety, proudly supporting emergency services and first responders on the front line. At MSA Safety, protecting first responders isn't just what we do, it's who we are. We work closely with fire and rescue services across the UK to develop and deliver safety solutions designed to meet your ever-evolving needs. That includes MSA Bristol Firefighter PPE, trusted by services across the UK and beyond, shaped through years of collaboration with frontline teams. It also includes our growing investment in innovation and technology, from the connected M1 SCBA modular solution to our agile, fully managed service model that helps keep crews protected and ready to respond. But for us, safety goes beyond equipment. We believe in standing shoulder to shoulder with the people who dedicate their lives to protecting others, whether it's supporting firefighter charities, backing mental health initiatives, or showing up for community events. MSA is proud to be part of the emergency services family. To learn more about our work in the UK and how we're supporting first responders every step of the way, visit www.msasafety.com. With MSA Safety, when you go in, we go in with you.
The credibility Steve has with his subject matter expert network across the country is phenomenal. And that's not just with one or two forces. What Stephen's managed to do is reach out across every one of the forces to have points of specific contact. And they're real key parts of what you need in a successful delivery of a program. I want to take now this session away from fingerprints, because I'm not going to try and teach you how to become fingerprint experts or the importance of remote transmission from crime scene. So we've now got the strategic position locked in that I've gone through. We've now got a fit-for-purpose product on cutting-edge technology for cloud that we can roll out. We've put into place Home Office funding to do that. We are now left with that position of how are we going to deliver nationally a capability to 43 forces across the country that configured for forensic delivery in all different ways. The first thing we came to do, and it's linked a lot to the strategic challenges, there were some big points we had to discuss about our delivery and how we were going to be successful. I've mentioned that forensic units are different sizes and scales. You know, you've got units that are in excess of like 500 plus. You've got some forensic units that are much, much smaller than that. Again, depending on the scale of each force in the country. There were different ways of working. There was different capacity levels. And when I say different capacity levels, I am going on about the appetite for change within that and the resources available for forces to leverage. Because when you come and say, we're going to deliver a new bit of technology, the first concern, and rightly so, is have we got the capacity in force with all the other change programs to land this bit of kit? And then building through that, you know, I've talked about the other things in terms of the priorities, etc., and the variance of tech landscape before. The big one is the accreditation demand. All of forensics really now has to sit under the Forensic Regulators Code for external audit to ensure that you are able and fit to deliver forensic services. The challenge we had a window of 12 months of delivery, but at the same time you had the accreditation curve coming in of demand that was not running to our plan. So what we did as part of our workshop session, we devised what we thought was a valid way of delivering this capability agilely, quickly, with quite an agile small team as well. We divided it into two phases, phase one, phase two. Phase one was about the technical going live of the capability in the cloud technology. That was driven by PDS under those key core areas that you can see on the screen to go to a technical go live session. Phase two, I'll cover it in a little bit, but phase two is much more force-led, which is the transition of taking it from a live capability into operational use. And it's not about a widget being chucked over the fence. This is very much about how do you embed new technology, a new way of working, the culture change that comes with that, very much to get to an operational position. Basically, it's a breakdown of how we've delivered successful delivery. We broke it down, and these are sort of the key areas that you can see on both screens. The main event that we held was a kickoff, which was reassuring forces that we knew what we were on about. We linked in all the specialist areas. We didn't just have people like Steve and James on site. We actually had our commercial links, our assurance links, our IT links, everybody that was relevant that engaged with a SPOC from the force, and made sure that we helped and supported through every stage. As we developed that approach, we learnt the lessons and our delivery enhanced as we went through from the first force to the last force. This process took us roughly 3 to 4 months per organisation that we delivered to. But we were running it in parallel. So we wasn't just doing one force waiting for the next. We ran this in parallel, which had high demand. But again, that kick-off event, what made it successful was two things. One, it was in person. So we travelled to the organisation to hold those. We made sure the right people were in the room. But at the same time, there was weekly drop-in online sessions to make sure that we were stepping through each of the steps with our deployment manager. We had change agents built up through the network of the design and build that were our advocates of change in force as well. So we had specific points of contact, and they're actually critical. They're even critical now in terms of the success of the capability. We had training. In the training, we delivered about 150 days of on-site training, force to force. The brilliant thing about the training is about a 5-day training course just to give you the size and complexity of the capability that I don't think we can show today here. But the key thing of the training, sometimes that was the first time somebody had seen the system. So that was part of our feedback, the view of the system, any future enhancements that we'd have to do as well. So a really key moment was the training. And we've got James talking about that in a second. And then the engagement, ongoing engagement. I'm talking about strategic engagement here from myself directly to forensic leaders, keeping a health check of how's it going, how's the delivery phase looking as well. So really important, but you're looking about 3 to 4 months per force on that. So what have we achieved together? So I've showed you the approach. Was it successful? Well, I'm pleased to say it was successful. From that delivery plan, in 1 year, we delivered the buy-in of 43 forces to the capability and our approach. We landed to the capability to 97.25% of forces. We would have done 100%, but we had to respect some forces a very small amount in terms of their own capacity, and we're picking that up this year. DFC is now funded as a live service, so we've got that signed up and locked in. So again, we've embedded that as a capability that we know the funding is there forever, basically, as long as the capability survives. And then additional funding locked in, which I'll cover in a bit, which covers phase 2. So the technical live to the actual transition to operational live. And then finally, as part of 24-25, we built a very complex build of a heat map process of if we were taking forces from a technical live, we could have walked away at that point, but we'd have been, I think, unsuccessful because forces need the support taken from a technical live to operational position. And when I say they need the support, they need us to coordinate the positive messaging and the lessons learned of forces that were onboarding as we go. So we did that as well. So a very successful year, 24-25. And again, brilliant that we got the funding from the Home Office for this year. James, if we take a pause for a second quickly, can you just quickly give everybody here today, from a customer's perspective, from a Yorkshire and Humber perspective, what the vibe was from the delivery that I've covered today? And I think that's really important to calibrate that with a bit of reality. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah. For me, one of the main reasons for the success of the DFC project has been the brilliant people involved, both at PDS and in the police forces across the country. The customer isn't just the end user, it's the IT teams, the commercial, assurance and project colleagues. The people involved right from the start have been really brilliant at all points. The relationships that were built in phase 1 continued on into phase 2. Key stakeholders got together in person at the kick-off events and continued to hold sessions throughout the deployment process. Then as forces continue with their journey with the DFC, we engage on a regular basis both online and in person, providing support and answering questions and connecting people. Most importantly is that PDS are open to suggestions and ideas are fed back across the community. one of the key high points of the project has been the training, as Rich mentioned earlier. And we've had a lot of really positive feedback about that, as you can see here, and we've been really proud of the work that the PDS training team has put into developing the materials, and also along with some further support resources. Those have been shared across the forces. But it's not just the end users that we've had positive feedback from. We've also had it from senior forensic leaders, as you can see from this slide here. Isn't that right, Rich?
Thanks, James. And very much, I think if you asked me one question, said, Richard, what was the thing that made the difference? I think is that we listened, and some of our customers were quite challenging, and we were very open for that, because what were we doing? We had come with a capability that they hadn't seen. We were trying to introduce that into their business area. We were trying to meet massively tight time frames because they were our deliverables from the Home Office. But listening was the key point, and having people like Steve and James on hand to say, we need to do this to create that successful delivery was key as part of our delivery. I particularly am very proud of that postcard. One, because I like the postcard in general, but I also like being called awesome. But anyway, it's a really nice thought that has come from the forensic community in terms of our sort of delivery. Sorry about the pun here, but we didn't leave the scene. So we could have, like I said, as we finish phase 1, we could have said technical delivery done. We've achieved it, 97.25. It's a national capability. Policing, now get on with it. Change. Through the conversations we had, and again, this plays into the feedback and the listening that I said was critical as part of this, that the forensic leaders were telling myself and Kira's in the audience were that please don't leave us in this piece, because you're only halfway through your job. And they're absolutely right. The stages to get from technical live to an operational, and what I'm talking about there is that you can use it and it's embedded and it's got the culture change and it's accredited. Our big thing, we're talking from start to finish of the phase 2, you're looking at 12 months to bring in a forensic capability and embed it. That's the sort of timescales. And I'm talking, that is with the support of policing, really driving it on their side as well. And it is really important to stress that it's okay me doing this presentation saying, this is the great things PDS did, and I think they have done. But without policing's buy-in and support and energies and effort, it's a collaboration to make this success happen as well. But we didn't leave the scene. What we set up was a stage 2 that we broke down in terms of a support network in terms of activities that were really key, and then also services and products. And you could take this and model it elsewhere. It doesn't have to be in forensics, I don't think. But I think it's really important. I think we've all seen national systems that haven't succeeded to be embedded. And I think the key is that you have to be here to actually help support that with the journey, with continuity of delivery. And we're learning so much. We're in this phase now. So we're 6 months in, and we're learning so much in adopting our approach and supporting forces. And before I hand over to Steve, just to talk through some of the elements of this, of which he can do far better than I can. What we're finding now is forces are now already switching on the operational go live. I think about 30% of the country now has actually got through a fast track into that accredited space and are in that sort of operational space, which is absolutely amazing. And again, a real advocate for us as we push through this year to get the whole country on board operationally. Steve, do you want to just go through to everybody just some of the supports and services and products and the features of that? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. As Rich said, we had a busy year last year, and it was exciting, admittedly, every time we onboarded a new police force with our technology and our platform. But the real exciting stuff has started this year. So in the last 6 months, we're already underway with a lot of the things that you see on the slide there. So I've got a peer support group network of over 100 people who fortnightly come online and talk about the way they're using the product. They're sharing best practice, they're asking questions, and they're supporting each other through the journey. We've also got engagement meetings where we go one-on-one with the forensic practitioners and the managers to make sure that they've got all the support that they need. What we don't want is to deliver some technology that isn't maximizing on that public investment to try and drive through positive results. We also do webinars, so we get guest speakers to talk about their journey and things that are happening in police forces like Greater Manchester Police or Yorkshire and the Humber. We also have produced standard operating procedures to try and standardize everything that people do and give work instructions so that we're lessening the burden on every force that up until now has had to produce 43 different versions of the ways they're working. We give them enabling resources, we've got interactive learning, and also, as Rich says, we have on the back of those engagement meetings a heat mapping resource that tries to show how mature forces are and how close they are to maximising those benefits. We've got on-site expert support, so we'll often go and visit forces to try and support, but also to try and take away learning and take away best practice, because we developed a product that we believed would work in a certain way, but only when it's being used on real crime and real contexts can we see the absolute power of it. And every time we get a victory or something positive happens, we share it amongst that quite vibrant, positive community. But I see this 12 months that we're currently in the middle of to be the most rewarding, the most exciting part of the journey, and really where police digital service just moves up into the 5th and 6th and 7th gears and really powers on.
Thanks, Stephen. And I mean, as I bring this presentation to a close, I've tried to show you all the elements with the team, the steps we've gone through and the journey we've taken. The bit I will just again pause on and hopefully reflect on, delivering national forensic capabilities is a rare event at the moment. It doesn't happen often. There is some fantastic local innovation happening, no doubt. But delivering a national capability that cuts over that sometimes is really challenging and difficult to do. I am not saying that this is the perfect model that you lead to successful national delivery. But I know through the process that we've undertaken and every step supported by, I think we're very lucky to be part of PDS as part of our national forensic delivery, because what's made it a success is, yes, the dedication of people like Steve and James and the cadre of experts across the country, but it's also the specialisms within PDS that's helped support that to enable it. We're in a great position now because we've landed a platform, we've got all the service, we've got the funding in place, and now we're ready as an organisation with a portfolio to say, and where do we step to now for national forensics? And there is, if you scan the news, you will see that at sort of government level, there is a big reform of policing happening, of which forensics is part of. This is a very nice pre-runner of that and the style we've undertaken. So thanks very much for listening. We're going to be over at the stand just over there, which you can see from here, which is 55, I think. And basically, any questions, Richard, unless you want to...
Well, if you want to grab a seat, and we will take questions, and I'm curious to hear, especially if there are people currently working in policing. But I wonder, actually, if I can begin by asking you, James. You talked about the customer end-user experience. Now, there's various different customers at play here. On one hand, you've got the cop or the detective who wants to scan someone, the kit works, the system says data accepted, and they can carry on with the rest of the job. On the other hand, you've got the forensics team who are going in and lifting prints. And then at the end of the story, you've got either the CPS or the procurator fiscal taking a bundle of evidence, and for that to be comprehensive and something that they can work with. What kind of experience have they had with this? What kind of feedback have you got from them about how seamless the process is?
Yeah, I mean, it's all been really positive. The fingerprints, as Rich said earlier, have been compared the same way for over 100 years. And, although that worked, it was really time to bring the discipline into the 21st century. And the project has just helped so much to speed up the entire process, and ultimately it better serves the victims of crime, which is the goal of policing in general.
Yeah, and Richard, if I can add to that, thanks, James. I think the bit that we could have another session on nearly every sub-session that we've done here for another half an hour plus. But the key bit for CPS and the whole legal end-to-end process, as Steve touched on, you can have a crime scene and take a mark from a crime scene, and it could be processed in a bureau in 10 seconds. The average benefit saving nationally is 3 days between just that process. So you're talking that fingerprint could arrive with Steve or James in a bureau in 10 seconds from a crime scene. Build that out, it becomes much more exciting than just a fingerprint then, because you've then got the whole evidential chain and the impact on detections and crime that becomes a much more effective product for investigators. And that's the key driver of this.
I think from a public confidence point of view, is changing from a situation in a crime scene where somebody finds something and takes it away to somebody who captures it and sends it straight into the specialist within seconds so they can work on it. I think that is something that people will appreciate, that things are moving. So they've possibly had the worst day of their year, maybe even the worst day of their life. But we are actioning that and getting it away to the specialist to be processed as soon as possible.
And I think you touched on this, Stephen, as well, the fact that much of this is now centralised. That must be music to the ears of many chief constables, because it takes off some of that financial resourcing IT pressures that have been on them previously.
Yes, certainly getting everybody in every fingerprint bureau up and down the country sharing and talking, and it becomes a more powerful group, but also it becomes a more effective group. But strength in numbers, I would say.
Yeah, and Richard, I think it's a really good point to draw out. It took a lot of yards to get the chiefs to sign up, not on the actual capability, but there's so many elements with it. Budgets are, do we invest in this or not? But when we showed the power of the system, and you're right, the sign-up was really flowing off that as well. But you do need a strong product, because it gets put under, and rightly so, a lot of scrutiny of, is this just a widget or is this a game changer for policing? This is very much game-changing territory. And I know everyone's probably in the room thinking, hang on, I watch crime scene investigation on telly. Haven't we got this already? No, we are still back in the Sherlock Holmes era of paper and old brass glasses. As charming as that is, the game changer is huge here.
Yeah. If you do have a question, stick your hand up. We'll get a microphone to you. It's funny you mentioned the Sherlock Holmes. I don't know if anyone's ever been to the Met Police's Black Museum that they have, that you can only go to if you're a serving or a former cop. And it's got some of the original fingerprinting stuff there, which is quite fascinating. I wanted to ask you about integration of systems, because one thing policing is terrible at is having multiple systems across the country.
Oh, God, yeah.
We've got PNC, which originated in the 1970s, and that's pretty much one of the very few universally used systems. When you look at intelligence databases, there's, half a dozen or so, then all the myriad different CAD systems, storm systems, etc. How have you addressed with this the challenge of having one national system that works with all these different individual ones?
Yeah, thanks, Richard, for the question, and a very great question, knowing that, it's a question that, you haven't been close to the programme. So there is no doubt when we took the capability out, everyone said exactly that. That's great, but we've got case management systems, intel systems that need to talk to this, or the other way around. And the positives that we came out with, first of all, because what we couldn't do is build this with the connection already in place, because you'd never get to deliver this, because you're not docking into one organisation, you're docking into 43 with 43 different way and systems on board. But never underestimate the demand or pull of having integration to local case management or local IT systems. So what we've got with the capability when we designed it, it's integration ready, so it's friendly. So we're basically in that plug. We are currently doing a bit of work with a group of forces doing discovery. And this is where the discovery phase is really important rather than lurching straight to solution. And we're working with forces now to say, okay, what do you need, either porting into our system or the other way around, pulling out? So we're doing a fantastic bit of work at the moment that will lead to a series of options for forces then to adopt and get that integration. The challenge that won't go away is that one session will not answer every force's integration ask. So we've got a piece where we need to group forces together that have commonality with their systems. So we're only doing the development once for them and learning, but we will get a massive bit of learning out of this already. So we've already taken that step and we're doing the discovery work as we speak.
So right at the beginning of the project, what we've described to you as a solution that deals with the evidence that was recovered from the crime scene. But for several years, the criminal justice system, when you've arrested people and fingerprinted people, that is digitally captured. So at the start of the project, we had those 8 million fingerprint sets that sat within a database. But to use them in fingerprint bureaus, you actually just had to print out a piece of paper. So right at the beginning of our project, a major and significant development was our integration with that national fingerprint collection. So we have integrated, and we're ready to talk about integrating further as well. But that was a huge piece of work, which was very much hamstringing the fingerprint service up until that point. And you could only really secure that delivery if you kind of pool the resources between all of those forces up and down the country. But now we can press a button that brings a set of fingerprints, which is what you use to compare against the crime scene mark, over within 10 seconds.
Interesting. Do stick your hand up if you have a question. Can I just ask, you mentioned the policing reform and, forensics is a part of that. Have you had to fight for fingerprints? I mean, there's an argument, come on, we've got, geolocations, we've got DNA technology, we can use cell mapping data, all this stuff can put people at the scene of a crime. We don't need to use this stuff from the 1900s.
Do you want me to have first stab, or you want to have first stab, James?
Well, fingerprints is still the only way to positively identify somebody. Identical twins have the same DNA, but they have different fingerprints. Yeah. So, it's really crucial evidence, even today in the criminal justice system.
Yeah. Thanks, James. And I think there's some realities here. I think Steve talked about, we're talking, hundreds of thousands of comparisons are done every year. This is not a niche service or capability. This is still high demand. And I think back to what James said, it's a very strong, if not the strongest evidential tool due to its uniqueness. And I think you've got to take sometimes your mind away from the value of fingerprints is national identity is still driven off fingerprints, nothing else. Things hang off it. And for the investigator, what you want is a package of intelligence, let's just call it intelligence, that then becomes evidence down the train, that supports their decision making as quickly as possible. If we go back to the 10-second rule, even though there is work behind that, but let's just take that back to the hours, you are still able to convert at an opportunity, I'll call, with the right configuration, a result back to an investigator in hours. Some of those other technologies still take longer, and that's not decrying them, but it again is putting that fingerprint identification to a real proactive position. And that's where it kicks back into the benefits of it. But for somebody, as Steve was saying, at a crime scene, to see digitally something happening that they can feel and recognise, it means a lot, in public reassurance. Yeah. And we are in the game here about how we reassure the public, and solve crime.
And just to briefly wrap up, you've given a great outline of where the system is just now. Where do you want it to be this time in 5 years' time? Right.
I think if you ask Stephen and James, they would want to evolve the capability more and more. It's due to its nature, it's much more than a minimum viable product. I mean, it is one serious bit of advanced, complex kit. The users, and this is a great part of the users, if you could argue it's a challenge as well, have come up with a massive list of what they'd love it to do now. Some are big, some are small, but again, every time you want to do something, it takes a pound note. For me, I want to ensure that we're using the cloud technology to deliver additional capabilities nationally. Does not have to be fingerprints, because what we've actually done now is basically provide policing with a national forensic cloud infrastructure that it can use for umpteen different things. But I'll be really clear on that. That's not my job to come and say that's what you should do. Policing needs to lean in and say, we'd like this to happen. And I think that's starting to happen now.
Yeah.
You know, people are now saying, can we do this? Does the cloud take that? Could you do that? Yeah. And the advantage of it is the reduced costs of that, because it's already there. You've got the service management. And we would take the skills we've got of delivery and enhance that as well to make sure we're applying it, if that answers it.
It does indeed.
Good question.
Thank you. We're out of time. If you could join me in thanking Stephen, Richard and James.
Thanks for listening. Remember that by taking time to learn from our speakers, you can earn CPD points from our partner CPDme. So do check out the link in the show notes. Our thanks to MSA Safety for their continued support for our podcast, and to Smart Digital for producing this series. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to For Every Response, the podcast from Emergency Services Times.